daughter, showstopper right now is the one and only, no other. Just pulled up, lifted and persisted, ignoring my voice of reason. I've seen things that I'll never mention. I've seen people do more for attention. Here comes Mr. Know-It-All. I know so much, but I don't listen. Lord knows that I feel that pressure. God, please forgive me for stressing.
Welcome back to the One and Only podcast. It's been a minute, but I'm super excited to announce my new guest, my new friend, Mr. Rich. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing doing well, Mr. Morris.
All right. We are here at the Gospel Rescue Mission dining room. I believe that's what this is, the dining room. And today we're going to talk about what the Gospel Rescue Mission is, how was it founded, what is it doing now. But I want to start from the beginning. I always like to start from the beginning and then work our way to, what's going on right now. So how was the Gospel Rescue Mission founded? And just give us the history on it.
In 1931, a man by the name of Hobart Cox saw a need, and he decided that he was going to start the Gospel Rescue Mission. He started over on Elgin, and had a little storefront there that he ran the mission out of. It was hardcore. The Great Depression was just getting started in 1931. 1929, the rich folks were getting it, but by 1931, average everyday folks were starting to experience the Great Depression. And Hobart Cox said, you know what, we got to do something about this, and started the Gospel Rescue Mission, not knowing that for the next 10 years we're going to have the Dust Bowl. Timing for starting a nonprofit was just out of this world impossible. But he also believed in a God who believed in the possible. So he began to pray. He actually has some great stories about his time at the old mission. So we had a place that got torn down, a storefront, and they moved over to the old hotel. It was a railroad hotel, which is our former location on 2nd Street. And then, so in that place, the whole downtown was on fire in 1966. If you go to the Three Rivers Museum, you can see some of the stories, some of the pictures of that fire. And the fire was blowing out toward the mission. And they actually evacuated that entire neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
They said, you guys got to get out of here. All those who were homeless at that point got shuffled off. But Hobart went into the chapel. And he said, I am going to pray because God gave us this facility. He's provided. He doesn't want to put all these folks on the street, so God's going to protect it. He just had that kind of faith. And he prayed until the wind shifted, pushed the fire away from the building, and then they were able to put that under control. And his family reports we smelled smoke, but never actually had any fire in that building.
Wow.
So if you go over there right now, there's an empty lot next to the old mission. There was actually a building that was on fire right there that they replaced. And eventually that federal building replaced the rest of that part of downtown that was on fire.
Wow.
So that's the kind of man of faith that the Gospel Rescue Mission was started from.
Whew.
And the other cool story about Hobart Cox, I'm just amazed by this man. I started to say, I want my life to have this kind of faith that this man has. He went out this way. Someday you and I are both going to go out.
Yeah.
And there's no question on that. Unless
everybody got to die.
We're going to have to die.
There's no way around it. Yeah.
So Hobart was an evangelist, and he would go out. He had tent revivals. He did all these things. Well, one Christmas Eve, he's giving a Christmas message, just a normal, everyday Christmas message. And he does an altar call, and all these people start coming forward. And at that moment, he has a heart attack. He can't pray with anybody up there because he's busy having a heart attack, and his assistants and other friends came and they were praying for folks, but he sat on the front row and he died. And I just keep thinking there's no better way for a man of God to go out than to go out praying for people, giving that last opportunity for somebody to be saved. I just thought that's the kind of guy I want to be. I want to go out with my last breath, loving on people, caring for people, doing the best.
Yeah.
Too many people waste the end of their life, but I don't want to waste it. I want every moment of my life to matter.
His last dying breath was actually serving somebody. So I definitely understand that, and I definitely get that. As far as Mr. Cox go, how has he impacted you like today? And today, like when you wake up in the morning and you come put your shoes on and come to this facility, what are some of your bulletin points of what would make, if he was here today, what would make him proud, or what would make him happy to know that this mission is still going on?
Well, one of the things that was amazing is that his wife was actually still alive when I got here 8 years ago.
Okay.
And so when she passed, I just assumed he died in 1966. So when I got here, I just assumed she was long gone. Mm-hmm. But apparently she was a lot younger than him, and so when I got here, she was still alive. And I heard a rumor that she was alive, so I started doing some research. I found out she was at one of the local senior living places.
Okay.
And I rushed over there. The moment I found out, I went over there, and they had just taken her by ambulance over to the hospital.
Wow.
So then I raced over to the hospital, and I got to visit with her in the hospital room for the last 2 days of her life.
Wow.
And in that conversation is where I got to know the family, got to know some of those folks. And they had been very disappointed, the family, particularly Frida Cox, his wife, in that the mission had become a flop house. There was no longer one-on-one contact. It was, okay, we got a bed, we got meals, that's all we're going to give. And that's what it had become. And she said, I've been watching, and I said, well, why didn't you tell me you were alive? But that it has become something more, that you actually get to know the men and women who are there. You know them by name, you know their story, you try to help them fix whatever their challenges are in their life. And you can't do that just by having them as a number.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one thing you'd be really proud of. The fact that we have a focus in on God himself, and God is the one who makes the change. Our unofficial mission statement is that we are here to help individuals to flourish, to help our community flourish, with God leading the way.
Absolutely.
So with God leading the way, I think that's where Hobart's real heart would be. That's where his mind would be. God changed him from a man of hate, a man of he just didn't like people. And then one day God got a hold of his heart, and he started loving on everybody. He didn't care what they looked like, what they sounded like, what they smelled like. And to do this business, you got to get to a place where you understand that. You got to love people who smell a little bit off.
Yeah.
You got to smell people who love on people who think a little bit different than you. And sometimes they think outrageous thoughts that, mental illness is part of that.
Yeah.
But you still go with it, and you listen to them, get to know them. Because it really is just, okay, you're mentally unwell, I'm not going to listen to you anymore.
Absolutely.
The truth is, there's still something in there. Something in their humanity, and I want to figure out what that is and connect with it. And I think that's something else Hobart would be very proud of, and I want to continue to have in my life.
Absolutely. So meeting their need, and also understanding and trying to get to know them, not judging them when they come into this building, because everybody that does come in is not going to be a well-cut, clean type of person. Matter of fact, probably 1/10 of them are, or
maybe 1 out of 100.
Yeah. So it's very important. I love that you said that, because a lot of the times, I'm not just going to say Christians, I'm just going to say people in religion in general, they'll come in or they'll see somebody and then they try to preach the word to them right away. And it's like, nah, it's not that they don't want to be preached to. It's just we got to meet that need first before we're able to sow that seed. So, and I'm not preaching. I'm just saying for what it is, and I believe that this mission here it speaks to me personally, because a lot of the times I do see that this organization works perfectly for the people around, if they want the help and they put the work in. Which leads me to my next question on what are some of the programs that you guys offer, as well as giving them a hot meal, giving them a bed to sleep in, and fresh showers and clothes as well.
Well, once they come in, we actually get to know them over the course of 2 weeks. Anybody can portray themselves good for one day, but it takes 2 weeks to really get to know somebody. Usually longer than that, but at least 2 weeks. And then we get to know them, and we set up a personal plan for them at that point. So whatever their real needs are, they have a plan that says, okay, you have diabetes. We're going to help you do a study over the next month on what diabetes means. What's the ramifications if you don't make some changes right now? What are the diet changes you need to make, or exercise, or whatever it is that's right? We help them come up with a plan for that, whatever that personalized plan is.
Okay.
As a group, though, we see some things that are common. So a lot of our folks have felonies on their record. They have a criminal record of some kind. So we started a class called Forging Past the Felony. And most people who don't have felonies don't really get it. It's like, well, you did your crime, do the time. I mean, that, to be honest, that was my mindset even probably 10 years ago. But I met a young man, and he was just sharing how hard it is after you have something on your record. Even if, this guy did something as a kid. 16, 17 years old, he did time as an adult, but man, he was judged everywhere he went with it. And I saw that with my own eyes as we would go places. He's being followed by security. Why is that? Well, he's got this record, and so people are going to always judge him. And he was better dressed than I was, so it wasn't about his appearance. It was about they knew him, and they thought they knew him. They knew the guy who he was before. Yeah. And so in our modern world, you don't just get your record expunged. You still can do that, and I recommend that for our folks.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of good reasons to do that. But that's not the only thing that's going to solve your problem. You have to have a character that rises above whatever it is you've done. So they don't believe that you're that kind of person who could do that anymore.
Got you.
Because of the internet, you can go online and you can see somebody's whole history. Whether he got expunged or not, it may not be on the federal government site, but it's going to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Especially if
it's
it's in
the internet. Yeah, man, it's the internet. You can find anything you want. My guy right there, he can find me anything. I hit him up. Hey, man, you find? I got you. You know. So no, you're absolutely correct.
So I want them to have a new life, and the only way they're going to get a new life is to them to make choices.
Absolutely.
So I use the story of Adam Brown, and I don't know if you're familiar with the story of Adam Brown, but he was a guy who had a long criminal record. Decided he wanted to join the Navy, and his record was so bad, the Navy said, "We don't want you." And I thought that's pretty bad when your record's so bad. Even the Navy, the military says, "No, you're too bad." But God got a hold of his heart. He started making some changes, and he knew somebody who gave him a chance. So he goes into the Navy, and he has to prove himself. Even though he got the door open for him, it was up to him to keep that door open.
Absolutely.
So he does an amazing job. And over the course, just to make a very long story short, the book called Fearless, if you want to read the rest of the story on him. But he lost an eye in a training incident. They don't kick him out of the military because his character is so high. They say, you have great value. We're going to have you in there. He should not have been even considered for Navy SEALs, but because of his character, they gave him a chance. That opened another door for him. And then he didn't want to be part of SEAL Team 6. They gave him a chance there. He had a rollover accident in a Humvee, lost 3 of his fingers. They didn't kick him out.
Man.
And that's because his character and his virtue was high. And even though this guy has a long history of crime, they kept giving him opportunities because his character rose above it. So I really, in that class, in our Forging Past the Family, we push a lot of character, virtue, get above all those things.
Absolutely.
The other common issue we have with our guests is addiction histories. Addiction it's an issue in all society, but obviously if they're here, that means that their addiction has robbed them of jobs and family and all that. They don't have any backup. A lot of people who can handle their addictions who don't show up here, somehow they still have family, they got all that. It hasn't robbed them of everything yet. So we talk about in our Freedom Club, it's our addiction recovery, is that you want to be free of this addiction.
Yeah.
Not to be preachy again, but
No,
when Jesus heals, he didn't say, okay, I'm going to touch your blindness, but here's some glasses.
Yeah.
He doesn't say, okay, I'm going to heal your lameness, now you got crutches. He heals them completely.
Absolutely.
And addiction
ain't no halfway healing. Ain't no halfway healing.
So he heals them completely of their addiction. That's what I aim for them to do. That's why I get challenged a lot by addiction recovery groups, AA, and even Celebrate Recovery to a certain extent, that say once you're an addict, always an addict. I don't buy that. You become a new identity, you become a new creation. You need to live up to that new creation. That's who you really are. So I don't want you to be struggling with your addiction the rest of your life. I struggle with my own addiction in my past, but it's not who I am anymore. My character, my virtue says, I don't drink because I know what that caused in my past. I want a new life. It's not saying people who necessarily have a little bit of alcohol, I'm not judging them. But if it messes up your life, you need to quit.
Absolutely.
If it doesn't mess up your life, you might be all right. But you got to think through those things a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. So just those 2 points alone, character and breaking those habits, both of those things put together, the number one thing in common that they have is coming up with a plan. So if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. And that's like super huge, like right now. A lot of people are wanting to do something and don't have any type of receipts to go along with what the success that they're trying to get to. And that's just very important to me on a personal level, because I got a lot of people, Duan, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And I'm like, all right, let me see what you got. Let me see the business plan, or let me see what your goals are for the next 6 months, or well, I don't have that. Well, it's kind of hard for me to capture your vision. It's kind of hard for me to, help you build something if I can't envision it myself. And so those 2 things are very important. Just real quick, even with me owning Morris Moving Company, because of what you told me about felons, I do hire felons. Now, they can't have like a crazy case or anything like that, but if they get in trouble for like a DUI or a drug charge or something like that, we do hire them. We don't allow them to drive in any of the vehicles, but we do hire them, and we do let them know that, hey, we do give second chances. We do help with you, because we understand how hard it is. And if you can load up a truck, make sure everything gets on there safely, hey, you got a job with us. So that definitely makes sense. That definitely helps out a lot of people that are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast to know that the Gospel Rescue Mission comes up with plans for a better future for you, for whoever's listening to this. It might not be for specifically you right now, but you might want to share this video or share this podcast with somebody else who definitely is struggling, who is on the street, because they do want to help you out. Rich, let's get into what is the step-by-step process once you give them that 2-week evaluation? How long do they have between that 2 weeks to be here, to elevate, to find their own place, or whatever that they want to do, All
right, so at 2 weeks, they've had a chance to interact not just with the staff, but also with the other guests. And over that, so at 2 weeks, they actually meet before a panel of 3 guests and 2 staff. And they're saying to that panel, I want change, I want a better life. And the panel are going to call truth or not. Because the guests are seeing them. So the guests actually have the strength, they have the power. We've empowered them to say, we got 3 guests, 2 staff, so staff needs to have a vote as well. And there is a side clause that we have never used that I, as the executive director, could say, you know what, no, this person's too dangerous, maybe they threaten people, that sort of thing. I've seen that at other missions, but I haven't seen it here yet. But those guests, they'll decide if they go forward. So after they get done, then we'll do a full course assessment with them. They say, yeah, if that panel says yes. If the panel says no, then the panel's going to say, this is what we saw. This is why we said no. Because you said you wanted to be better, but we also see how you're acting when staff's not around. And the guests are usually a little harsher than staff is.
Gotcha.
There are exceptions. But most of the time, the guests are saying, this is the truth. This is what I saw. And they're very direct. They say yes, and they meet with our staff, and they set up a personalized contract. And a personalized contract is going to look at this full assessment, physical, mental, spiritual, social, and that whole assessment is actually on our website. So you can check out grm.muskogee.org. You can see what that assessment actually contains.
Okay.
And so it's a very detailed, getting to know you as best we can. And though it ends up being a form, the form is more of a guide for a conversation. I want your story.
Gotcha.
Why do you think that? Why do you believe that? Why do you have this addiction in your life? When did it start? Whatever you're willing to give, we're going to take. And then they're going to set up a plan, 3 to 5 things on, usually low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
If you're functionally illiterate, which is one of the things we're searching for on that. If you're functionally illiterate, then your goal over the next month is to sign up for literacy classes over at the library. They got literacy classes all the time. All you guys show up and say, hi, my name is Rich, I'm having trouble reading, and they'll have somebody help you, coach you.
Wow.
So we encourage them to do that. That's part of their contract. If they don't go talk to the library, I know you don't really want to change. So a month later, you violated your contract, you're going to be exited. And it could be, like I mentioned before, the diabetes thing. If you're not willing to study and understand your diabetes, willing to make some of those changes, you're violating your contract. You're out in a month. Sometimes they're easier, and they're sometimes more difficult as we get to know you. And that whole time, they're also part of our Work Start job training program. So we're teaching you how to work and to actually be present at your job. And then, so at the end of that month, we look at, did you fulfill your contract? If you fulfill your contract, then we're going to give you another contract. And once we complete that contract, we do another assessment. See where you're at. Do we have progress from the first assessment to the second one? If we don't have any progress, then it's probably our fault. We didn't challenge you enough, or maybe it's we misunderstood. You weren't honest with us the first time. You didn't know me a month ago, 6 weeks ago, so I'm going to give you another chance.
Okay.
So sometimes that's the reason it's messed up.
Okay.
But regardless, they get another contract, and then they keep doing contracts. As long as they're making progress, we're going to work with them.
Got you.
It's a couple of pieces of the contract. Every other contract becomes a challenge contract. We know that challenge is what's going to help us to grow. If I go to the gym and I'm lifting styrofoam weights, I got nothing.
Absolutely.
I got to lift a little bit heavier weights. So we know some of the bigger challenges. They want to be free. And freedom is our ultimate goal. We want them to flourish, and you can't flourish in captivity.
Absolutely.
And so our first challenge contract has got to cut out government fund, the first one is you have to cut out under the table jobs.
Okay. So they have to have you got to have a W-2 or W-9 job, or you can't.
Right.
Absolutely. You got to see the process, and not to cut you off, but what it sounds like to me is y'all are giving them a space of grace, but also giving them accountability. Hey, we're not going to hold your. This is what you have to do on this first month of this contract, which I call accountability. We're going to give you that space to do it. Now, if you do need help, we're not saying that we're not going to help you, but you have to want the help. You have to come up to us. We'll lead you to the door, but you got to walk through it. And if you have a choice of walking through it or not, if you don't want to walk through it after the first month, hey, we wish you the best. We'll try to figure out something else for you to do, but because you're not listening to, or not, I'm not gonna say listening, you're not abiding by this contract that you agreed to, we gotta let you walk, and that makes sense.
And our leadership philosophy is going to do with you as much as I possibly can. There are moments where we should do for people, but panhandlers, you're never doing for them. You're doing for them all the time. You're not really helping them.
Yeah.
But we want to do with them. And same thing, we don't want to do to you. That's what law enforcement ends up having to do. They do to you.
Yeah.
And that's not cool. But so we don't want to be law enforcement. We don't want to be the panhandler person. We want to do that with you. We're going to walk with you. And if you stumble, we're going to know that. We're going to help you pick you back up.
Got you. Okay. So we know the steps into the program, and I know each case is different. But could you give us like a best case scenario on usually how long a client or family, I call them family members, how long a family member stays here at this facility?
They can stay as long as they need to, as long as they're making growth.
Okay.
But the average person will come in and say, okay, I got this. They're going to do the first contract, maybe the second contract, and now their life's stable. All of a sudden they have a plan for their life. And when you're thinking about where your next meal is going to come from, you're not planning for tomorrow.
Absolutely.
I'm worried about tonight. That's all I'm worried about. But at being here, they start thinking, well, okay, next week, next month, and they start to feel the stability, and they feel good about it. Maybe they're starting to reconnect some of their family. Maybe they're starting to first light of sobriety. Whatever those things are, it's that first stability, and they think, I got this, and so they take off. They say, I'm done. And it's a little bit like getting a prescription. You have a week, you're supposed to take this for a whole week, and you feel good after day 4, so you quit taking it.
Ooh, yeah.
And that's what happens.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty of doing that.
I don't need to take it anymore. I feel good.
Yeah.
And that's how they feel. And they go out and they figure out, oh, I don't have this all the way yet. It was a taste of what it could be like. And then they come back. And we welcome them back. Let's have another conversation. Let's do another assessment. See where you're at right now, and let's move you forward. The challenge for staff when that happens is to set aside who they were before. Because now they're a new person. They've been out for a season, whether that's a month, 6 months, sometimes years.
Yeah.
And I'm legitimately excited when I see them after a couple of years, particularly, because I don't know what happened to them. They're not exactly calling me saying, "Hey, my happy days at the mission."
Yeah.
It was a shameful moment for them. I don't think they should feel the shame, but they do feel it. So when they contact us, we give them another chance, and we keep working with them. So. Usually it's about 10 times they got to do that before it finally sinks in and their whole life gets stable from that.
Absolutely. Okay, so it's not a time limit. You give them you give them as much time as they need, as long as they're abiding by what the accountability that they're given with. That makes sense.
And the contract is theirs. They have a voice in that. So if we make a suggestion in that contract, they say no. I'm not ready to do that yet. Then we say, okay, let's put that off. We'll do it on a future contract. We'll keep that in mind for something in the future. Unless it's something life-threatening or dangerous, we're going to put it off.
Okay.
Occasionally, it's something that's so destabilized. We say, you know what, you really got to visit with Green Country right now. Okay. You're not going to ever have a good life, even here, if you don't do this. So every once in a while, we do push it, but most of the time, it's them saying, this is what I need for a better life.
Absolutely. Let's talk about. So you mentioned Green Country, so we're going to segue over a little bit. Let's talk about the partnerships and relationships you have around Muskogee that help this mission out.
We work with just about anybody who loves our people. So Green Country is the one we probably work with the most. They're really the area experts on mental illness and mental challenges. And so we work with them. They actually come here twice a week, and then more often if we have special cases, but most of the time they're at least here twice a week. They have personalized one-on-one appointments to set them up for further appointments in the future if they need it. Whatever they need, they're here twice a week. They actually teach a class so they can start to recognize. I never think about this too much until recently, but if you're mentally ill, you don't know you're mentally ill.
Yeah.
And if somebody tells you that, you think they're crazy.
Yeah.
So having that expert to kind of help them walk through and say, well, I'm really not seeing ninjas drop out of the ceiling. Really? It's a shock to them. And so they actually can help work with them. So Green Country is the one we work with the most. We work with United Way. In fact, we're partnering with United Way to bring Charity Tracker to Muskogee County. Okay. And Charity Tracker they show up at some church, want some help. That pastor can put them in the system, see their story. It's a process to capture the story and then refer them to the help that's going to best help them.
Absolutely.
So that obviously we work with fire department and police. We get to know them a little better than I'd like. We get to know them, the EMS stations across the street. We have several businesses we work with as part of our Work Start program. Our Work Start 2.0 is actually an apprenticeship at a local business.
Oh, wow.
We actually just started that. And we actually will pay them in GRM bucks for the first 2 weeks. So your risk is less. I mean, anytime you're working with somebody with a past, you may have some risk involved. But you don't have to pay them for those first 2 weeks in your own money. You're kind of taking a chance. We want to honor that chance. And so we have several businesses, and it's based on their passions.
Okay.
If you want to be a chef, we're going to get you one in a restaurant.
Okay.
If you want to be an office person, we're going to get you an office job. So several businesses we work with that on. Most of the churches in Muskogee I work with in some capacity. We partner with them.
Okay.
And we do two different things with them. First of all, we're their benevolence fund. They bring people to us and we become their benevolence.
Absolutely.
But also we need to educate our community, because our community is Muskogee is so loving and caring.
Yes.
And unfortunately sometimes they go above where they should be, actually, where they're no longer helping. So helping a panhandler is most of the time, and 90% of the cases, you are feeding their addiction. And so we don't want to be doing that. So we actually go to church and say, look, I know you love those people, you care about them, but hey, we got these business cards you can give them. It actually has a QR code to watch our orientation. They know it's going to be expected. If you actually want to help them, then get them to the mission. We check people in. We have not had to turn anybody away for lack of space.
Wow.
And in fact, in Muskogee County, according to the state's one-day count, they do a one-day count every year, how many are homeless in every county. We have more beds in Muskogee County than we have homeless.
Wow.
So we have ended homelessness in Muskogee County. There's nobody that's hanging out at the parks, in the water parks, or any of these other places that need to be there. 100% of those could come in. They don't need to shower at the water parks. We got a real shower here. They don't got to sleep under the awnings of the park, because we got a real bed. And it's real interesting, the conversation. I mean, I'll come to work and there's people camped out in the backyard.
Wow.
I'm like,
I know you can come into the.
You can come in here. We got a better bed than this bench. Bench might be comfortable, man.
Yeah.
But I think the bed's gonna be better.
And it just goes back to they got to make that decision to come in. And I think that's more of a challenge. That's a whole nother conversation that we could talk about. But I think that everything that you talked about right now has just been phenomenal. I think everything that y'all are doing, not just you, but your entire staff have been doing has just been, tremendous and has helped Muskogee a lot. And a lot of people heard of the Gospel Rescue Mission, or, oh yeah, I know where that is. That's right across the street from, the wreck. But they don't know what it's about, and they don't know the depths of it. So this video is definitely going to make sure that everybody kind of knows. And there's no excuse. Everybody, y'all heard that? There's more beds here than there are homeless people in Muskogee. So that should tell you, if you see anybody homeless, you should come by the Gospel Rescue Mission, get some of these cards and just hand it to them and say, hey, I know you're going through something, but here's this card. Here's the address. They have everything that you're gonna need to be successful. And then you let them make that decision. But like he said, giving somebody some money is only gonna feed into their addiction. And I truly believe that. Sometimes God will tell me to give them money, but for the most part, I'm like, nah, we're not gonna do that, because I understand that that's just gonna keep them out there even longer. They feel like they can get something, for free, and it hurts my soul, because I am a believer, so I understand that God wants us to be a giver, and, we could take as well. We got to learn how to take as well. But I know he wants me to be a giver. But sometimes in that being a giver, you got to learn when not to give. And those are circumstances sometimes that I have to deal with,
And it's not just, I'm not saying don't give more than money.
Yeah.
Look them in the eye. You are a human being. You have great value. And your sign says you'll work for food. We got something that can do better for you.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing for them. If you can't feed them every single day, you got to bring them here. We're going to feed them 3 meals a day. If you can't house them every single day, you better bring them in here. We can house them every single day.
Absolutely. So, Rich, we talked about the past, the history. We talked about the present. Let's talk about the future. What is Gospel GRM? What are we doing in the near future, between the next 6 months and even a year out from now? What are our plans, man?
Let me give you the big vision. This is my big, holy, audacious goal.
Let's go.
So this is to actually end homelessness in the state of Oklahoma.
Okay.
And it really, the downright phrase is reveal the glory of God by ending homelessness in the state of Oklahoma, because I can't do it on my own. I don't have the skills. There's no program. None of that's going to fix the homelessness. But if every county in this state could just say, we're going to have a place that if whatever number of homeless we have in our county, we got to count. We actually went out and we counted. The one-day count gives this number, but I doubled that because
absolutely,
people are hiding out. They didn't get counted. So if every county, we know exactly what every county needs to have. If they just have a shelter with this number of beds, they can also make that same claim, that same promise, and guaranteeing opportunity. I read through the scriptures. Jesus didn't help somebody who didn't want help. He waited for them. Zacchaeus climbed the tree. If he decides not to come down, he doesn't get help. The guy doesn't pick up the mat. There's two different stories. A guy's picking up mat. If they don't pick up his mat, he doesn't get better. He's got to want it. But we got to be available as Christians, as people of faith, to say, I'm going to offer you this opportunity. So that's the big picture. And then we have events that come up. And all of our events are either going to be, we got 4 different reasons why we have events. So you go to our events page on grmmuskogee.org, and you're going to see events on there that are strictly for helping the individuals. So we want to help individuals, so we have our Lunch and Learns, where we're learning more about issues. So we're going to have one on mental illness and what that looks like, the complicated issues of that.
This episode is brought to you by Oki Flow Fitness. Tired of going to the gym and not knowing what to do? Having trouble losing weight and toning up? Join Oki Flow Fitness. That's right. This CrossFit gym is perfect for you. They have 2 different locations. One right here in Muskogee, 2910 South York Street, and one in Tahlequah, 2091 West Choctaw Street. Tell them Duan sent you. Now, back to the show.
All right, so we have events at grmmuskogee.org. That's where all our events are located. And you'll see what's coming up. We have Lunch and Learns that are to help our community learn about the issues, the complex issues. It's not just throwing them in a bed or not just feeding them. It's a lot more complicated than all that. We have book clubs every single month. We have a book club. If you're the first 10 people to sign up for that book club, you get a free book for the next book club, whatever that next book is going to be. So again, that's educating, learning, so our community can flourish. It takes a community to really solve the problems of the community. Absolutely. Individuals can't do it. So we have fundraisers. That's the second reason is fundraising. We do have to earn funding, but none of our fundraisers are make or break. We have a banquet and we have our run. September we have a run, and in November we have a banquet. Those are primarily fundraising events, but those are also educational for our community. We want our community to flourish. The run not only is a fundraiser, but it's also individuals to flourish. You run a 5K, you walk a 5K. We had a 94-year-old man finish the 5K last year.
Oh, wow.
And that's a man who's flourishing with his life.
94.
And it's pretty amazing. He walked it, but he beat a lot of people.
I bet he did.
It's pretty amazing. He's one of my heroes because he was able to pull it up. So he's flourishing. Individuals flourish with that. And then we have worship nights. And so I'm still looking for more nights. We have every month, the first Tuesday of every month, from September all the way through March right now is covered. So anybody wants to do beyond that, April and beyond. And it's going to be a worship night. We're just going to worship God. We're going to walk humbly with God. And so if we're looking for somebody to have a worship team and then 3 prayer teams, that would be also available. So somebody just in the middle of prayer worship says, I want to pray. There's a room. They just go in there and you get prayed with.
Okay.
So that's going to be walking humbly with God.
Absolutely. I love that. So in the worship team, are you asking for like them to come here or to come to have it at a church?
This would actually be here. We actually have a prayer team that will actually be in this dining room praying for the event that's going on in the chapel.
Oh, okay.
So in the chapel, the worship team will be leading the worship time. We're estimating an hour and a half to 2 hours worth of worship.
Okay.
And we have 3 offices in there. So during those 3 hours, 3 offices, just in the middle of worship, you say, you know what, I feel like I need prayer. We're not going to have a special altar call. Just, you need prayer right now, go.
Okay.
So you go to the rooms, there'll be a little waiting list, we'll sign you in, get you to the next prayer room that's open, and get prayed with, prayed for, whatever the need is.
Good deal. Well, Mr. Rich, I think you've covered everything, but I do want to give you the floor to anything that we did not discuss that is very important. I want you to have the opportunity to say it now, man.
Well, I just appreciate the opportunity to talk about what God is doing here. This is not what Rich would come up with. It was not my life dream when I was a little boy, but God put this in my heart, and I carry a burden for these men and women. I love them amazingly. So a couple things I just want to say to anybody who's watching. Social media will put out rumors that are just outrageous. Come take a tour and find out the truth. Don't just believe it because somebody said it on social media. And so you come to those Lunch and Learns. They're free. The book clubs, you don't have, if you haven't read the book, come in, you're going to learn something. Just let's work together on this whole thing. And most importantly, if you happen to run into them, look them in the eye. If you see a panhandler, look them in the eye. Tell them that you care about them. Love them. Ask them what their name is. Get to know them and love and care for them. And if our community would do that, it's going to be much better than just the handout mentality we've been having.
Absolutely. So everybody, y'all heard that. Forget all those rumors. Come and find out. What does it say? Come seek and find, and show that the Lord is, taste the Lord, and, He is good. Thank you, Rich, for everything, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you invited me to some of the meetings. And the first meeting I even came to, I was like, we have to tell everybody about this. Even myself, I'm 30, but I truly didn't know the ins and outs and everything that's been going on here and how much it's truly impacted Muskogee. And I think the world, I noticed I didn't just say Muskogee, the world, will now finally, understand the ins and outs and the future and what's going on now at the Gospel Rescue Mission. Everybody, thank y'all for watching the One and Only podcast. It's been a minute, but I'm happy and I'm excited to partner with my friend Rich. Everybody have a wonderful day.
I am the Don Dada showstopper, right now is the one and only, no other. Just pulled up, lifted, and persisted, ignoring my voice of reason. I've seen things that I'll never mention. I've seen people do more for attention. Here comes Mr. Know-It-All. I know so much, but I don't listen. Lord knows that I feel that pressure. God, please forgive me for stressing.